Hey, I was just trying on my shades. Do I look cool? Anyways, thanks for coming by. I am American Jesus, and the rest of this video pretty much is, and most of it is going to be about my opinions about things, mostly about 12-step fellowships and how they have lots and lots of problems. And a lot of people don't know about this because they don't attend them for decades like I have. And so I'm here to kind of shed some light on things you may not know about the fellowships, or things you may have heard that you heard and then you heard and then you heard and then you heard, and you're like, well, that doesn't sound right. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. I forgot what the question was I was going to ask, and then all of a sudden you're dead. No, actually, so yeah, this video and the next video are going to be about how places like Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, like who are they scared of? We're anonymous. Is like a cult. So this one's how it's like a cult, and the next video is about how it's not like a cult. So if you want to watch both of them, then you'll just know everything about everything, won't you, little boy? Alright, anyways, so, and I do 3 things generally for each one of these videos to try to keep them relatively short, because I can ramble on. Like right now I'm talking about how many things I cover in my video, and now I'm talking about the fact that I'm talking about. But yeah, so one of the things that you're going to run into with a cult, and when I say cult, I'm talking about Heaven's Gate, I'm talking about Jonestown, and then there's a bunch of others, but those are the most famous because everyone killed themselves. And in 12-step fellowships, only some people kill themselves. So that's one of the differences. But that's the next video. Yeah. In almost every cult, the new members are incredibly important. Like, ridiculously important. Like, what we say in the fellowship is that the newcomer is the most important person. Now, when you bring somebody in to a cult, they're generally looking for some type of belongingness. They want to be part of a group. And they want, because that's human nature. That's part of the human animal. We're social creatures. We feel uncomfortable when we're not part of a collective of some sort. And a lot of people in our culture, because it's terrible, find themselves very isolated and unhappy and alone. And so they do things to make themselves feel better about being alone. And they do drugs, and they partake in, promiscuous sexual activities that are detrimental to them. And that's a whole different... we don't even want to... Yeah, so... or they eat, or they spend money. The things that we're taught to do as Americans, are Westerners. Americans, I speak mostly for Americans because that's my experience. And we're taught very, very poor coping skills for things like loneliness. And, we buy things, we watch shows, And so you take people that have had these solutions, and these are the only solutions that they were given because they live in the United States of America, and you send them to a meeting, or somehow they end up in a meeting because their ego is so destroyed, and they're already so kind of questioning of themselves, and the first thing that they hear is that they are the most important person. And when you walk into a cult and you go, holy cow, I'm important to somebody. Because most people ignore me. You know, or I have to struggle to get their attention because most people are narcissistic. And wow, I found the one place that's free of narcissism. Like, none. There's no narcissists here because they don't even know me and I'm all of a sudden more important than they are. Praised be. And that is very, very seductive to the person who's spent the last 10 years alone and isolated. And there's a lot of good that can come out of that. There's a lot of good. But what ends up happening in meetings and what ends up happening in cults is that all of a sudden they start, at first you're the most important person, but you're not, some people are like, I've got 35 years and I'm still a newcomer, and you just want to be like, shut up. You're not a fucking newcomer. You just still want to be the most important person in the room. You're a complete narcissist. You're not a newcomer. There's a difference. So there comes a moment when they realize that you are attached to this type of attention. And they don't realize it consciously. No, this is a systemic problem. It's built into the entire program. So they have no idea, that they're manipulating you. They were manipulated when they got in, and so they're doing the same thing for you. But eventually they'll be like, oh, well, you should do service work if you really, value this fellowship. And it's like, wait, I thought I was important. No, not anymore. No, that was to get you to come into the fold and get you dependent on us for basically support, but now it has time to pay back. And generally that's what happens. It's either time to pay back. This isn't cults. This is we're talking about cults. If it sounds a lot like 12-step fellowships, that's the point. But hey, it's time to pay back. You need to support your meetings. You need to do service work. You need to work steps, because steps are important. And you need to do this, and you need to do that. You need to do this, and that, and this, and that, and that, and this, and that, and buy a book. And it's like, why do I need to buy a book? Why can't I just, get one printed? Oh, well, because money. And all of a sudden, it happens slowly. Just like in a cult. They don't come out and go, hey, welcome to our cult. They go, hey, welcome to this new thing where we're all, here to help you. And we're going to help you, and you're going to be so happy. That actually somewhat sounds like a Donald Trump pitch. Is that you're going to be so happy, and you just won't believe how great everything is going to be. But if you go out there, then the bad things will happen. That's another part of the cults. Is that if you're not one of us, you're not only against us, but you're an idiot, because that's the bad, evil stuff. And not that people outside of the fellowship are evil. They don't say people outside of the fellowship are evil necessarily, unless they were doing drugs, and then they say most certainly that if you're not in the fellowship and you're doing drugs or drinking to what they would term excess, then yes, you are most certainly evil, because they were evil. Now, I wasn't evil, but apparently I was, because that's the definition of an addict, is an evil person who does drugs, according to many of the meetings that I attended. Where people would literally say, or, you were like me when I was out there, I was a piece of shit. I was like, I bet you were, because you still are, you dumb son of a bitch. You're a dick, man. You're telling all these people that are relatively new and young that they were pieces of shit when they were out there. What the fuck is wrong with you? So, the point of a cult is to feel safe within the collective. The point of the cult is that if you're not in the cult, if you're not in the 12-step fellowship, then something bad will happen to you. And so they entice you by making you feel part of, but then they also fearmonger so you don't want to leave. And eventually, what they also get into, and this is like one of the last telltale signs of a cult, is that they want to know your secrets. Only we can understand your secrets. And once these people know your secrets, once they know what's in your heart, what you've carried with you, then you'll be surprised how much enmeshment you will feel with these people. These are things that I thought I was going to go to my deathbed with. Scientology does this. When they have the little freaking lie detector tests, which is exactly what they are. It's a lie detector test. And it measures whether or not you're anxious. And so what they do is they have you talk about things that make you anxious until you're no longer anxious about them anymore. And then that's when, the little sensor goes down. Because you've talked about it. If I tell you something that I'm anxious about, if I keep saying it over and over again, eventually it will lose that kind of anxiety that I associated with it. Well, that's very similar to working a 4-step and a 5th step. That's very similar to what they would call telling on yourself. That's the same thing that you see in Scientology. That's the same. Now, ironically enough, and you see it in Catholicism, but then you don't see it in a lot of like Protestant and other denominations and other religions, where they just like, we don't want to know. You just keep that to yourself. We know you do fucked up shit when you go home, all right? And we just don't want to know what it is. Just be sure that when you come here that you can put on a good face and make everybody think you're fine. So, yeah, and then finally you have idols. And the biggest idol is that you have generally some type of a tome or some type of a piece of literature that has the answers that you can reference. And all cults have something like that, usually handed down by one of the predecessors of the cult. And that sound familiar? And if you question it, it doesn't go well for you. If you say, oh, the big book, I don't know if I fully believe in all of that, then it doesn't go well for you. Many people will get very upset with you because to them, you are defacing their idol. They have to believe that this thing has all the answers. Otherwise, they become lost again because they have to have simple answers. Otherwise, they will cease to function. And so the best way to do that is to create an idol, to worship the idol, and to make that something that you rely on to make your decisions for you. And if that idol is incredibly ambiguous and has no real answers in it, then that's all the better, because then it seems profound. Which is why you'll see no real, kind of demonstrative answers in the literature for the 12-step fellowships. And ironically enough, there's not really a lot of debate, which you would think there would be. You would think people would debate the literature all the time. But not in a religion. In a religion, in your particular congregation, you don't debate. You have a few people who kind of tell you what everything means, and if you don't like it, then you can go somewhere else. Because either that or you're going to come around. That's the keep coming back. You're going to come around. Keep coming back, and you'll see it my way. And it's like, yeah, I've been coming here longer than you, like by decades. So I shouldn't I be telling you to keep coming back? Maybe you should listen to me. I don't know. So yeah, they're very similar. And the reason for that is because it works. It's a system that works. You know, the Catholic Church knew it. It's a system that works with the human animal. So that is how 12-step fellowships are very much like a cult, unfortunately. And I want to remind you that not all, meetings are like this. Not all groups are like this. But the problem is that I can't for sure tell you that if you go to a meeting tomorrow, what type of meeting you're going to walk into. You may walk into the Atlantic group. You may walk into the Pacific group. Or you may walk into the group that I walked into 22 years ago. And you're fucking lucky. Because they'll be like, hey man, we're just here to support you. And I don't even think that I even knew it had to book for a while. And all of my friends were clean and were interesting and were fun. And we hung out, and eventually, maybe occasionally, we talked about step work, but I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching, and
kid, other side is something big. Do you think that what you did would bring you back to this?